بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We are now on مجلس التاسع regarding آداب تلاوة القرآن, etiquette of reciting the Quran. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. فهذا طرف من آداب تلاوة القرآن. The Shaykh, he says that this is a طرف. طرف is normally the edge of something or the end of something. So, the Shaykh, what he's trying to say is that these are a few of the adab etiquettes of reciting the Quran. لأن القرآن الكريم كلام الله سبحانه وتعالى فيجب تعظيمه ويجب احترامه. Because the Quran is the speech of Allah, so we have to venerate it and we have to respect it. والتهيؤ لقراءته على أحسن حال, and to recite it in the best manner, or in the best, or to recite it upon the best state. فمن آداب التلاوة, so you can number these as you go along, it'll help. So this is number one. The first is أنه إن كان يقرأ من المصحف فإنه يجب عليه أن يتوضأ. So if you recite from the Mus'haf, then you have to recite what's in the state of wudu, and this is the opinion of the majority of the ulama. And Shaykh mentions a hadith لا يمس القرآن إلا طاهر, that you shouldn't, nobody touches the Quran except that he is طاهر, and it's been authenticated by Al-Albani. And then Shaykh carries on to say that if somebody is reciting from memory, ظهر قلب, that's what they call it, it means basically from memory, or by heart, as some people say, فإنه يستحب له أن يكون على وضوء. Then it's mustahab, recommended for a person to be in a state of wudu. But if a person is in a state, أما من عليه حدث أكبر, major impurity, كالجنابة, he's in the state of him needing to do wudu, sorry, not wudu, ghusl, have a shower, then it is not permissible for him to, it's not permissible for him to read. So if he's in a state of hadith akbar, major impurity is a state that you're in which requires you to have a shower or a ghusl. Kal janaba, such as being in a state of impurity. If you've had a wet dream or you've had intercourse, then you are in a state that you need to have ghusl. والحيض, and also women on the monthly cycle. And this is actually an issue, fiqh issue. The correct opinion, Wallahu a'lam, is that they do not, a woman on a menstrual cycle does not do I mean, it's better for her to do wudu. So the correct opinion, inshallah, is that it is permissible for her to recite the Quran. The correct opinion, inshallah, is that it is permissible for her to recite the Quran while it's in a state of being a ha'id, being on a monthly cycle. And this is the opinion of Shaykh al-Islam, Shawkani, Ibn Baz, and Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahumullah. And those that say that it's not permissible, they mainly say because there is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تقرأ الحائض ولا الجنب شيئا من القرآن, or something similar to that, that the one who is junub, in state of janaba, he needs a ghusl due to a bad dream or having intercourse, and also a ha'id, they should not read from the Quran. So they use that to show that the ha'id is mentioned. However, the hadith is weak, and Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah mentions that this hadith is weak by the consensus of the muhaddithin, or the consensus of the muhaddithin. نعم, the hadith, the wording is لا تقرأ الحائض ولا الجنب شيئا من القرآن. نعم, لا تقرأ الحائض ولا الجنب شيئا من القرآن. So that's one thing that they use, but like we said, it is weak. That's one hadith that they use, but like we said, it is weak. The other reason that they use is that they do the qiyas of the woman on the menstrual cycle upon the person who is in a state of janaba, because they both need a ghusl. Because a woman, once the cycle finishes, she has a ghusl. However, the issue is that this qiyas is not a sound, because there are a lot of differences between a person in a state of janaba and a person who is, or a woman who is on her menstrual cycle. Firstly, a person enters into a state of janaba out of desire, normally, intercourse or something like that, and haid is not the same. And secondly, not only desire, but most of the time it's from their own will as well. That from your own will you go and you have intercourse. Maybe not as much of a dream, but with intercourse, yes. But when it comes to menstrual cycle, then it's not. There's no choice. It just starts whenever it starts. Also, another difference is that a person in the state of janaba, he can leave whenever he wants. He can leave the state of janaba. He can just go and take a shower. But a woman, not the same. And also, the period of time that person is in the state of janaba is very short, maybe a few hours, something like that. But with hayd, that can be a few days, normally a week. So there are a lot of differences. So for that reason, because the qiyas is not sound and there's no clear hadith, we stick to the asl, which is that it's permissible for them, and not only permissible, but it's the Sharia, it recommends us to recite the Quran and encourages us to increase in the recitation of the Quran. And even when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to Aisha radiallahu anha, when she was in a state of she was in a monthly cycle and she went for Hajj, the Prophet told her, افعلي ما يفعل الحاج غير ألا تطوفي بالبيت حتى تطهري. That do everything that a person doing Hajj would do except doing a tawaf. Don't do tawaf, but apart from that, do everything that a normal person doing Hajj would do. And from the things a person during Hajj would do is recite the Quran. The Prophet did not prohibit her from doing so. The only thing the person prohibited her from doing so was doing tawaf. So that's why it is bi'idhnillah permissible for her to recite. However, I do believe that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he did put like a little clause in there, and he said that a woman should only recite in the menstrual cycle if there's a need for her to do so. So for example, if she normally recites every single day anyway, or if she's memorizing the Quran, or she's revising her memorization, then yeah. Otherwise, if she just wants to recite, she doesn't recite the whole month, and the day she wants to recite is the day that she's on her menstrual cycle, then just better just to stay outside of the khilaf. Just to stay outside of the khilaf, it's better not to do other stuff with dhikr and other acts of worship, just to, so that you don't fall into the khilaf, and that is safer bi'idhnillah. But it is permissible, inshallah. And this opinion of Ibn Uthaymeen, it just seemed like a balanced opinion, that if a woman does actually recite daily and she is memorizing and revising and so on, then yeah, she should. But if it's just for the sake of, I just feel like if for one day, then Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he says it's better for her to not on that day. Wallahu alam. The second adab is to أن يستعيذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, to seek isti'adha, seek refuge in Allah from shaitan. Allah says, فإذا قرأت القرآن فاستعيذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. That when you recite the Quran, when you want to recite the Quran, just before you recite, you should seek refuge in Allah from the cursed shaitan. Now, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he's got a book called إغاثة اللهفان في مصايد الشيطان. إغاثة اللهفان في مصايد الشيطان, and I believe it's 2 volumes, and it's a very good book where he talks about the plots of shaitan. And in here, in chapter number 12, just from the 3rd page of this chapter, so in the print I have is page 157. From there, he starts talking about some of the benefits of saying isti'adha, of seeking refuge in Allah from the shaitan. So I'm just going to summarize them. The first, he mentions that the Quran is a shifa. The Quran is a cure. And shaitan always brings doubts and desires and whispers into a person's ear. So by you doing isti'adha, seeking refuge in Allah, it gets rid of shaitan, and it allows the Quran to be more of a clearer shifa, a means of cure. The second is the Quran is a source of guidance and of knowledge and of goodness for the heart, just as water is the source for plants. But shaitan is fire, which burns all of these plants. So when you do isti'adha, you do so that your recitation of the Quran does not become corrupt. And the difference between the first point and the second, Ibn Qayyim, he says that the first is regarding benefiting from the Quran, that you get rid of shaitan so that you can benefit from the Quran. And the second is so that the Quran can remain with you and it can be preserved and it can be memorized and it stays with you. The second is so that the Quran stays with you. So the first is that you benefit. The second is that you benefit, and now it stays with you. That shaitan doesn't come later on and burn that which you have benefited from. No. The third, and then Ibn Qayyim just actually mentioned that, and if somebody was to say that, oh, we should also do isti'adha after reciting the Quran, then they have understood the meaning of isti'adha. However, we don't do that because it's not narrated in the Sunnah. No have the Sahaba and the Salaf done that. So that's why we don't do it. But the meaning, if somebody does say that, then they've understood the meaning, but in terms of action, we don't do it because it's not narrated in the Sunnah, nor by the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. The third is that the Malaikah, they come closer to the one reciting the Quran, and shaitan is the enemy. So we get rid of the enemy so the Malaikah can come. And I'm summarizing, but obviously he just mentioned proofs for these points. The fourth is that shaitan, he comes and he distracts the reciter of the Quran by moving his feet, his hands, distracts him any way that he can. So by doing isti'adha, it prevents the distraction from shaitan. The fifth is that the reciter, he is calling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he's reciting, he's speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most attentive of listeners. So, but shaitan, his recitation is music and the like. So the reciter is commanded to do isti'adha while he is speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is listening to him. The sixth is that shaitan always comes and he, especially with the previous nations, he used to come and he used to corrupt and throw falsehood into their texts. Now obviously the Quran itself is preserved. So what shaitan does now is that when a reciter reciting the Quran, he tries to make him make mistakes, make him forget, and so on. So when you do isti'adha, it gets rid of shaitan coming and doing that. And the second last point is that shaitan, whenever you are doing good, then shaitan is even more eager to come and to stop you from doing that good. So when you do isti'adha, it stops shaitan from stopping you. And the eighth and the last benefit that he mentions is that when you say isti'adha, you say a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim before reciting, that is like an announcement that you've made to show that you are about to start reciting. So if somebody else hears you say a'udhu billah, then they know that you are about to recite the Quran and they won't come and disturb you. So these are some benefits that he mentioned. The next etiquette that the Sheikh Salih Al-Fawzān mentions, this is number 3 now, is that you recite. If you start from the beginning of a surah, you say the basmalah, which is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. But if you start in the beginning of a surah, then you don't have to say that. So if I'm starting in the beginning of Surah Baqarah, in the middle of Surah Baqarah, and I start from Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam, for example, I just say a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim and I start reciting. I don't need to say basmalah. The next, number 4, is tartilu at-tilawah. What tartilu معناه التأني في التلاوة وعدم السرعة بإعطاء الحروف حقها من التجويد حسب استطاعتي. That you do tartil in your recitation. You recite slowly and you give the right of every letter. You give every letter its right. You recite it clearly and with tajweed. The next one, number 5, is أن يحسن صوته بالقرآن. Beautify your voice when you are reciting the Quran, so that the reciter and the one listening can enjoy the recitation of the Quran. The next, number 6, وَمِنْ آدَابِ التِّلَاوَةِ كَوْنُهُ يُرَاعِي مَنْ حَوْلَهُ. That you take into consideration those who are around you, whether somebody is sleeping or somebody else is reciting or somebody is praying, and you do not disturb them. And the Shaykh talks about this, and he even talks about mukabbirat al-sawt, speakers and so on. That always having speakers on outside, even on masajid, and every time it is recited, it does disturb the houses around, and a person could be sinning for that because you are disturbing others. And then the Shaykh, he talks about that if somebody is around you, even if you're praying the night prayer, if somebody is around you who is sleeping, for example, then you shouldn't recite out loud. You should recite quietly. But if there's nobody around you, then you can recite loud. And when you recite loud, don't go to the extreme in that either. And the next one, which is number 7, is بل من الواجب فيها أن يتجنب اللحن. and this is not just an etiquette, but something which is obligatory, is that you stay away from lahan. Lahan is basically mistakes, but it's more specified to mistakes in speech. So, and obviously from speech of reciting the Quran. So stay away from all those mistakes that that you made, all mistakes in the Quran. He says من نصب المرفوع, i.e. putting a fatha on a word which is meant to have a dhamma, or رفع المنصوب, or putting a dhamma on a word that's meant to have a fatha, and so on. Especially if it does change the meaning. And this just shows the importance of going to a teacher to correct your recitation and not just reading by yourself. And then he says ومن أعظم آداب التلاوة, and this is number 8. This is number 8 now. Previous one number 7. This is number 8. تدبر القرآن والتأثر بمعانيه والاتعاظ بمواعظه. That you ponder over the Quran and you become affected by its meanings and you take its reminder. والتفكر فيه, and you think about it. ولا يكون المقصود هو ختم القرآن. And your intention and objective should not be just finishing the Quran and going past the ayat without benefiting. And he mentions the ayah أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوب أقفالها. Do they not ponder over the Quran, or are there shackles upon their hearts? And Shaykh mentions that in the Quran, everyone benefits, even the general person. They can do tadabbur because in there are many things which are clear. Hellfire, paradise, zina is haram, usury is haram, interest is haram, cheating is haram. All of these things are clear. Salah is obligatory, zakah is obligatory. These things are clear, and that's what the Shaykh talks about in this chapter. In this sitting, Al-Majlis Al-Ashir, it is quite general what the Shaykh talks about, and he basically talks about في التحذير من خطوات الشيطان. He talks about warning from following in the footsteps of shaitan. And he mentions the ayah, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. Or you who believe, do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. And this is mentioned in more than one place in the Quran. In Surah Baqarah, ولا تتبعوا يا أيها الناس كلوا مما في الأرض حلالا طيبا ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. So very similar is mentioned in more than one place in the Quran. And the Shaykh basically says here is that notice Allah is talking to you, He's addressing you, and He's commanding you with that which will enter you into Jannah and that which will keep you out of hellfire. And Allah is Ghani, Allah is self-sufficient, not in need of us. But yet He is calling us and He is commanding us with that which will benefit us, not Him. Because if everyone became a kafir, that wouldn't affect Allah. It wouldn't affect His kingdom whatsoever. Nor His ownership of His ownership, and it won't affect Allah and His power in no regard, in no angle, no aspect will it ever affect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yet Allah, He commands us with that which benefits us. And that's what the Shaykh basically says. And he says that if those sound and correct intellects just pondered and acknowledged this wisdom, then that would be something that will, and that they realize that it is something that benefits them. Otherwise, the Shaykh says, فَإِنَّ الْعُقُولِ, where are these intellects? أين التفكير? Where is this thinking? He uses the ayah, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. They have hearts that they do not think with, and eyes that they don't see with, and ears that don't hear with. What does that mean? يعني لا يفقهون فقها ينفعهم. They don't think and understand a thinking or understanding that will benefit them. وَلَا يَنظُرُونَ نَظْرًا يَنْفَعُهُم. Nor do they look a seeing that will benefit them. وَلَا يَسْمَعُونَ سَمْعًا يَنْفَعُهُم. Nor do they hear a hearing that benefits them. And carries on. And he says, otherwise, they're just like بهيمة الأنعام, like the cattle. أولئك كالأنعام بل هم أضل أولئك هم الغافلون. They are like they are like an'am, they are like cattle. Rather, they are more astray. أولئك هم الغافلون. They are those who are heedless. And then he says, وكما أن الله يدعو إلى الجنة فالشيطان وأولياؤه يدعون إلى النار. And just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls to paradise, then shaitan and his people call to the hellfire. إنما يدعو حزبه ليكونوا من أصحاب السعير. And verily his group call to the hellfire, basically, or to be from the inhabitants and the people of the hellfire. ففرق بين دعوة الله ودعوة الشيطان. So there's a difference between the da'wah of Allah and the da'wah of shaitan and shaitan's helpers. And then the Shaykh talks about the importance of not falling to the footsteps of shaitan and being steadfast upon goodness and upon preserving the obligatory matters, and increasing also in nawafil, and not falling into sins, and so on. And with this, we come to the conclusion of today's sitting also. Subhanakallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.